And as a sergeant, it's just, for me, it was just that times 10. Like I'd have 10 guys in my shift, and I would know that there was a couple that were going to do extremely well, and I would mentor them to get to the next level. And some that were at the bottom, I had to watch to make sure that they're going to make it and not screw themselves up or the department. And then the ones who just needed that direction and push. And the last thing you want is that salty patrol sergeant doing briefing who doesn't want to be there and is basically essentially begging the guys not to get into anything proactive because they don't want to do work or write the reports for the pursuits or the uses of force or any of the things that go with it. And, if being able to impact a patrol shift to give them an environment where they want to go do the right thing and be a cop, like I loved it. It was a good time.
Yeah. No, that's a great answer. And you're absolutely right. Because I know when I first started, I'm sure it was for you too, you had those sergeants that are exactly a little bit retired on duty, like you just said, or as some people say, rusting in place. And that's kind of what they do. They just sit there and they're rip rod, and they don't want to do anything. They just don't want to do the work. And yet I think that's kind of changed, at least at our agency and at other agencies that I've seen. There seems to be a new generation of people with the same mindset of what you just said, where their goal is to take guys and bring them to the next level, as well as try to protect and keep safe the guys that may not quite be there yet. And Lord knows that's probably the most stressful part of the job.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. And another reason why I promoted even more to get out of IA is because like a lot of good people don't want to promote. Like they want to stay in detectives or officer or deputy positions. So you get stuck with a bunch of people that shouldn't be supervising anybody because they're good test takers or they have their masters that's the politics of it all, right? Like, so I kind of, I felt the calling a little bit and it was actually looking back at some of the more rewarding things I've done, even though it wasn't necessarily the most exciting stuff I've done. But even in the jail, like, working in sheriff's departments, being a sergeant in the jail, you're getting baby cops. And we had correctional deputies that were 18 years old coming in. So like, I've got 18-year-old kids in a big scary jail, and we're having jail disturbances and fights and teaching them. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. Like I felt like I had more impact on them, like an 18 or 21-year-old kid, than I could have with a 30-year-old trainee hitting patrol,
I couldn't agree with you more. And as someone who came into this career later in life, I was in my 30s when I started in law enforcement. And yeah, I completely understand. In fact, I can't imagine doing this job at 18, 19 years old. Knowing myself then, I'm like, no, I cannot imagine it.
Well, as a sergeant, half your job is keeping them out of trouble and keeping them from screwing themselves, right? Because they're kids. They're literally kids. Like, when you're that age, you don't think of it that way. But when you're in your late 30s or 40s and now you're supervising a bunch of kids, you're like, damn it. Like,
yeah,
you gotta keep you from your own worst enemy more than anything else, and most of them get it, but some of them still think, oh, you're the mean sergeant, but whatever, they'll figure it out later if they're still around.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. And when they hit 30, 40 years old, like we are, they're going to be like, you know what? I'm glad, because those are the sergeants. Those are the people in my life that I'm like, I'm glad I had that mentor. I had that person I could reach out to and kind of help me out.
Yeah, everyone remembers the sergeants that they loved, that they worked for, that supported them, taught them something. One of my favorite sergeants ever is John Morin. I'll never forget him. He's a captain now at a station. He taught me how to go and I worked South Central and did dope investigations all the time, but he taught me different levels in a patrol environment. The guy would sit there and teach people how to develop informants in patrol for drugs.
Very
and cool. We were developing info and writing warrants and then basically handing the warrants to the special teams. Here, we're serving this, I'm going. And they were like, what? And our whole shift was like that. So you have like a stellar supervisor could change everything. He propelled a lot of good cops out from his supervision. So, you take little things like that, and for every one of him, there's 4 that aren't like that, but you just try to be one and see what you can do to keep the good part alive, no matter how many people get into law enforcement that they shouldn't, or aren't there for the right reasons. There's always going to be a core of people that are, no matter how defunded we are, no matter how hated we are, there's always going to be people drawn to this profession for the right reasons. And you have to embrace those people, even if it's a smaller percentage, just so they can be successful. Because those are the ones that really, I try to tell people, like, there's only 20, 30, 40% of cops that are actually really out there doing it right. A lot of people, lazy, disgruntled, whatever. Like, there's so much of that. Like, people don't get that. And you have to embrace the ones that are hard charging, protect them from themselves, show them a good path, help them out and move them up. Because if your department just is promoting people who are the other 50% or so, like you're in trouble. And it shows in a lot of these departments with horrible admin decisions and all these riots and stuff that's been going on. I mean, it's been awful, some of the things we've seen.
Yeah, which, like I think you just pointed out, it has a lot to do with a crisis in leadership often.